Richard, how's it going?
Hey, it's going good. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Just playing some Smash Bros, beating up my buddy's kid.
What
Um, I unlocked Sephiroth, and man, I can't get enough of that character. He's the best
Sephiroth?
from Final
Who's
Fantasy.
what's he from? Oh, from Final Fantasy, yeah. He's like one of the two guys. Like, there's a guy with a sword. Is that one of them?
They both got swords. One has like a
One's blue or
cloud.
something.
Cloud has like this
Oh
massive
yeah,
block of a sword, and Sephiroth has a measure suit. I don't know how to say it. It's a big long ass sword.
yeah. I guess Final Fantasy
Yeah.
started on Nintendo or something, or was on there at one point.
Yeah,
'Cause otherwise, now it's like a PlayStation
five.
thing. It's interesting. The characters are in Smash Brothers.
Yeah, it's come a long way. And it's just so far I've seen Final Fantasy VII characters. I haven't seen like 8, 9, or 10 or anything like that. Or none of the other ones, just 7.
I liked Firefox or Star Fox in Smash Brothers
Star.
because he has his gun doesn't do much, but it's fun to like shoot rapidly.
Yeah. Yeah, my character
Or then
got,
he, yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Like
he's got
Sephiroth
the
has
shield too. He has like a deflector shield or something for lasers.
sick. Yeah, Sephiroth has
Mhm.
like dark flare, normal flare, his big ass sword, obviously. He has like some sort of like shield counter and like octo slash that you can do if you charge and hold. It's a nice aerial slash. Yeah, he's a bit of a beast. I'm still figuring him out.
Smash Brothers, the timing has always been a bit odd to me. Like whenever I'm jumping in the air and I'm both me and an opponent like hit at the same time, sometimes I get kicked away, and I never really understand exactly who takes priority. Like during a if you both punch at what seems like the same time.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Yeah, but it always feels like not the right time. Like it always feels like cheap timing, but I've never figured out what's how is one supposed to time. I always want like a better, more in-depth training mode.
Yeah. No, it's a good game still.
Yeah, those characters with the swords, like you're saying, they always felt a bit like there's a little bit of a like intentional delay. Like their attacks are stronger, but there's a delay. It's not like an immediate like Star Fox kicks immediately when you hit, and that's always been like I like to just have the thing happen immediately when I hit. I don't want to like even if it's for like power gain. I don't like trying to time in advance. I like to just be, like last minute be able to pull off a move that doesn't maybe do a lot of damage, but it like lands the hit or something.
Oh yeah, I'm all about the charge attacks, man. The
Yeah, that's
charge
more like Dark
directional attack.
Souls. That's some real
Uh,
Dark Souls timing. Yeah.
yeah, I'm all about that. Like I just figured out how to do like an octo slash while standing instead of being in the air.
Mm.
So like it's like an up attack, but once you
Oh
do
yeah.
up and the special move, you can change the direction of the attack while holding and like charging. And so you can just
Right.
not charge and zip across the screen with like one slash, or you can do like an octo slash if you charge. And I'm figuring out like how to angle that, and oh, it is dirty because you could do it while you're falling too, like you're from some height, and you can just like aim it downward. Yeah, no, it's a good game. I like it. What else? What have you been up to?
This week I had like a decent, decently like engaging work. Like there was a person in the office that could like answer questions for me, so I felt like I was like accomplishing stuff, learning stuff at a good pace. So that felt good. And then just now, like some people drank some eggnog like in the office. There was just like 5 people in the office, but it was nice because people when they just gather like casually, they like share their thoughts about like the whole state of everything, and it's very nice to like hear people off the cuff like describe like their impressions of what's going down like in the industry and all that from like their perspective because then there's a bit of like shared like everyone's a bit like cagey and a bit scared, and everyone's worried about like layoffs and etc. and all that stuff, and doesn't is very uncertain about the future. And it's just nice to hear other people like say that too, and have like, sort of misguided opinions or correct opinions or like good uh, takes or like interesting like plans or ideas or something. Then it makes it feel like more there's like other humans are in this as well, like kind of suffering or uncertain, and that's nice because sometimes it just feels like I'm getting taking all this news and I'm like concerned, and then if it's like a regular day where everyone's just going about their work and not like melting down, then it feels like kind of artificial because it feels like everything's on fire but no one's like acknowledging it or something.
So
So
that was
that
like every day in my career serving in the military.
that is the thing about the military is people can like easily bond, like like on exercises or wherever or afterwards, like people can just kind of share in the obvious like terrible conditions, and that like people bond very quickly in those environments, I guess.
Hmm. Well, there's like something like trauma bonding or bonding
Yeah,
through negativity, hot
I kind
wiring
of
connection.
that's some one thing I like about like ultra running and these events is that like when you meet people like to like you can sort of just encounter people on the course and both of you are like physically struggling in this race, and that's a very nice, that feels like a very real way to like meet somebody. It feels like they don't have any defenses up or any sort of fanciness, like it's just sort of like raw getting to the objective, both supporting each other, like sort of helping each other like sort of navigate a little bit, like follow the course. And
Hmm.
that's such a fun, like it just feels like a very human way to sort of like human slash animalistic like way to sort of like exist or be social, is in this way where two people have this like very physical clear goal and they're just sort of trying to get through.
Yeah, I'm just starting to think about that. It's interesting that we as a species run for fun and like track it and measure our speed and our ability against other people.
Mhm.
I think it's actually interesting.
Yeah, at some point I feel like I've gone beyond running, and for me it's just like I just want to feel like physical hardship and push against something, and just sort of have to like wait it out like a certain amount of, it'll take me a certain amount of time to either walk or run like to finish the course, and I'm hurting and I need to eat food to like fuel myself, and it's just like a very like immediate like every action I'm doing is just oriented towards like making forward progress and making sure my body's like taken care of in the moment. And that I feel like it's very detached from like running. It's just sort of like putting the body under stress in a very simple way, like just one foot in front of the other in order to like create like this resistance and this friction, just to sort of face, sort of like block out all the other like high level thoughts and just sort of focus the mind like on a very simple task, uh and no distraction or something. And that's the state that I really like to be in. I always like wish that there was more like opportunities to sort of like do stuff like that, whether sometimes like mental challenges, like that's what I like about I do this whole like programming challenges where you're given like a programming problem and you just sort of sit there for a couple hours like typing, thinking, trying stuff out, and you're sort of like fully absorbed in this mental challenge, like you're imagining different structures and trying to like solve this cognitive problem that's sort of like all focus, it pulls your focus like to this one thing. And that's also fun. It's just fun to like be oriented towards a goal in a very like complete distracting way.
Kind of do that
But
when
then I just, yeah,
yeah,
piano. Yeah.
yeah, I get lost for a long time in that.
Yeah, that
Excuse me.
does it because it feels like true. It's like if we if we are exposed to the elements, then the task that we are fully focused on is like our own survival, and that's like a very primal, like natural state to be in. But as soon as you like, if you remove our need to like maintain our health and our sort of awareness, then we just feel completely lost. Like we just feel like I can just sit here and survive and do nothing, and so I guess I will, and then I'm bored, and then I start like then we get distracted by the news, or we try to feel like some like exhilaration or anger or something, or scared from the news because we're so like removed from any sort of real physical danger, that we are like looking for like something to just get our heart rate up because we don't have these natural things like fear of predators or something.
Those are interesting thoughts. Yeah,
Yeah.
never thought of that way.
Video games too, I guess, are like I always, I want to feel like I'm accomplishing things and sort of like the numbers going up or like building a base or clearing, getting, sort of exploring my environment. Like a lot of times, like I just end up playing video games because I just want this like sensation of slowly building something up, and sort of like checking these tasks off a list or maintaining something. And then yeah, but it's like I don't get enough of that in a real way. Like it's just sort of so too open ended in real life when I'm just sitting around. Like I want like some kind of structure. I really liked being in university environments. That's why I would want to go back and do like a master's at some point, just so there's structure, there's an exam I have to pass, there's like work I need to do, and the work is like completable in a pleasing way. And then yeah, like there's other students around doing the same thing, like so it feels more of like a group thing.
Yeah, just the whole. I mean, I don't know how it is in the States, but in Canada, just the higher level learning
Yeah.
education system. I don't know. I'm not a fan of it.
Yeah, I think I would not want to do like a PhD for that reason, that it's like who you're friends with and what article you can get published and where you get the funding from, and that's not connected enough to like the to anything practical. I feel like if I found a school that was connected to like video games, then I could make like my masters could be like making kind of some kind of video game tool that you like plays on like geometrical pattern, like some kind of pattern to create like a world in a game or like a pleasing like environment or something. Just sort of yeah, tie it somehow to some kind of mathematical or academic thing, but also make it like an actual useful tool or simple game or something.
Hmm.
Yeah, I was thinking like people do like a master's in music. I don't know exactly what that entails, but that sounds interesting. Like a program where people are like sort of perfecting their different instruments, and the people around speak the same language in terms of like music and feeling and stuff, and then learning like some of the like rigorous like theory, like musical theory, to enable more precise like creative expression. And I feel like there's a whole like art community that I've never been like connected with, but they are trying to like achieve certain things that are just like sort of expressive like artistic things that nobody has a way to like communicate the value of, and so then it's like kind of dismissed often or overlooked or something. But it's like people are discovering like new like ways to or like connect music with different stuff.
Hmm. Well, speaking of art and assigning value to it, it's interesting that we do that. I mean, there's some incredible art pieces out there that aren't worth that much. And then there's some weird things. I don't know what to call it. It's called art, apparently, worth hundreds
Mm.
of thousands of dollars. Like things I could do blindfolded with both my hands tied behind my back. there's some real shit out there that's considered art, and it's like, but here I'm judging something, and I'm like, well, what is art, and how do we assign a price tag to it? Is it because it's the person and their reputation? Like, why does their reputation matter when it comes to us? Like, just the name. Ooh, it's this person. Ooh, he's only made 100 paintings, and each one is worth so much money because of this person's credibility. Like, I don't understand it. I listened to somebody, so that's like art, like drawing and painting and stuff. But I there's this guy who's coming to Toronto playing piano, composer, and I listened to his music, and it sounds exactly like mine. Wow,
Mm.
like the quality, even the quality of it, and he has like hundreds of thousands of views and on this one particular piano song, and it's mundane. It's basic, and I don't feel anything when I listen to it. And I'm like, this has over 100,000 views, and I'm like, why did he take off and none of my stuff took off? What makes him more credible than I am? I don't know. This is like sort of like the mystery. This is a mystery to me. I guess you just gotta keep
Mhm.
at it and be consistent and consistently put your stuff out there to get noticed. Maybe I just answered my own
Yeah.
mystery.
Yeah, people like I guess the grind is invisible, or like the marketing, the advertising is like kind of invisible. We don't really realize like we get served like stuff and we think it's like we randomly found it or we've seen all the things, but actually like anything we see has like intentionally been gamed or like served to us. Uh I was listening to like a marketer talk. I'm kind of forgetting a lot of the details, but they had some analogy of like just this like they were sort of just like it was like an obvious analogy of like you can have like object like they were talking about games. They're like games of different value and like it could be the most valuable game in the world, but like no one is gonna find that game if it if you don't do anything. If you just like upload it somewhere silently, it's never gonna be found. And then they were saying like, but if you like announce it, like obviously if you just announce like even like a mediocre game with like a megaphone, then people are gonna like find it. Uh And so it was sort of like, yeah, it was like, why not take like the good game and then amplify it with the megaphone? Like it couldn't. It's almost like they were saying like it couldn't hurt. Uh, like if the game is good, then you do want to have more people know about it. It's like doing them a favor, like that sort of thing. Whereas like it's kind of bad when when stuff that's like not good gets broadcast over a megaphone. It's like well, people are still gonna hear it like because it's over a megaphone. Uh, but then it's like but it's weak, the message is weakened by the quality of the stuff ultimately. Yeah, but I'm not like repeating it super clearly, but it was sort of just like it made me sort of think like I guess it just sort of makes sense like I guess the when you hear like a person who's like in marketing, like looking at the numbers, looking at the amount of like I'm talking about video games, but like the amount of Steam games that get released and how they had this whole term like dark Steam, like the game store. They were like everything, like if you go on Steam and you see the front page or you go in any category and you like dig like 50 games deep, you might think that like that's all of Steam, but Steam is like 4,000 games a day or something, and there's like 4,000 games a day that we never you never see, and only if you like play the game right will your game make it to any findable like any button or interface you click on in Steam. Those games that you can find, like those are the games that have like won. They're like one in 50, like top 50 of like 4,000 that day. Uh, and it was just sort of like it's like we think that it's like surely people would dig down and find my game, but it's like they cannot dig remotely deep enough to ever even get a hint of your game. unless you boost it as loudly as you can, and then it's going to make it at least to where like it's presented on the interface of the tool such that they might find it. And then of course, like if it's good, then we'd assume they would find it then. But like, yeah, it just sort of created this impression of like, yeah, like it's sort of like people are not capable. They don't even have the tools to find some stuff that gets released unless it's boosted in some way just to get onto the list of potentially being shown or something. And I feel like maybe we're just missing like the numbers, the size of the numbers or something.
Hmm. Yeah, I should probably take this more seriously and explore it soon. I'm gonna have some, well, assuming my stuff with my release gets sorted out, it's been a nightmare and a half actually. It's been very, very bad.
Hmm.
Supposed to start getting payouts like support, but that's not happening until the new year. So everything's like delayed and I still got expenses. And anyway, once everything is finally done and I don't have to deal with the headache of I'm released to the military, still dealing with like stuff from the military. They like lost all my stuff. But yeah, when it's done, then I can really start focusing on what brings me joy, which is composing piano. And I can't do it for too long. I get lost in it, but the body starts to hurt, which brings me back to reality. So I am limited, but I like to do that and continue to learn and grow. And then finally, when I'm learning, it's like it could be about music theory. A master's in music would is kind of intriguing. It wouldn't really be for getting a job. It would be just to
Mhm.
enhance my my hobby, I guess. But like
And
learning more about
networking and stuff.
yeah, there's that too. Like-minded musicians. That'd be cool. Seeing what's out there. Anyway, I guess I just gotta put the energy into it, and I haven't. And it's about doing so consistently, like that 1% every day, small gain every day. Because when you look back after a few years, that's when you really see the gains. But this world of instant gratification, and I'm bad. I mean, in that, like I go to the gym and I want the results like right away.
Mm.
That's just not how everything works. Yeah, you gotta work at things, stay at it.
Yeah, I've heard there's at some point there's like we get naturally good at stuff, but then there's like a point of diminishing return where uh we need to be given like the correct like structure that we should be like training whatever the thing we're training in is. Like I realized this with like my programming. Like I've been programming like just on my own in hobbies like for so long that I feel like I've perfected it, but then as soon as I see like like a formal structure in a large code base, I really can't like follow it at all. And then I realize like I don't even know like I don't have any skill at all in like production sized like programming because I would never practice that like just sitting at my computer by myself like writing my own programs. So then it's almost like in order to grow at all at this point in programming, I have to like be handed like here's the big like production structures, like the big design patterns and like how the architecture of like these larger things work. I need to kind of be like told like about that and then like work in it and then I would get that skill. Otherwise, like I'll never like just discover that or like realize it like without facing it like directly. I can't just like I can no longer like sit at my computer and just like program the same like programming puzzles and programming challenges because they're not giving me this like greater architectural view that I just like never encountered before. But then yeah, I guess there's probably something to be gained. Like if I do get that extra information like given to me, then that will like expand. That's the only thing that can really push my skill forward. Like I'm totally at the point of diminishing return in terms of like the algorithms that I know how to program. I know them like pretty well, but like it's like 99%. So like I could only increase it at most like 1% more. But if I learned a little bit about these higher order things, then I would move forward like into this new area that I don't know anything about.
Hmm. So with your job, what is it you're doing?
Uh, at the moment, the cleanest way to describe it is like there's a thing called Figma, and Figma is like it's another company. They make like a product for designers where it lets like designers design like say like a website or really anything. They could design like a t-shirt design, or they could design like an app screen because they can like drag and drop like rectangles, change colors and fonts to like make something that looks like an app, like an app or a website. And then typically like once the designer is done using that product, they would give like an engineer like here's a bunch of screenshots, like PNGs or images of like what the site should look like, and then the engineer like writes the code that makes the same thing that looks like that. And that's like there's like this handover process where the designer like explains like how the site works. And basically like the team that I'm on, we're just trying to like instead of like the designer just taking like images of their design, we're trying to export the design. There's like different ways you can like export a design such that you can sort of pull apart the layers and maybe like do some like generation, like generate the code so that instead of just like the engineer starting from scratch receiving an image, they would receive like a bunch of code that's generated from the design that approximates like here's all the styles, the buttons, the colors, like the fonts, and then you just have to write a bit more code on top of that and you're done. Uh, so we're sort of just trying to create like a pipeline that does that as best as possible. But there's a lot of over the 2 years that I've been on this team, there's a lot of challenges of like it turns out that the design tool itself doesn't have the ability to like describe certain aspects like what should a button change color when it's clicked, or should this list scroll to infinity, or like this is like when you click this thing this pop-up shows, but where should the pop-up be, like all these little the things that would be normally what a designer would like have a conversation with the engineer and like tell them, oh yeah, like this thing should like flash when you click it or whatever, but that's not reflected in like the image. uh but then so we're like sort of going back and forth with like, do we augment the design tool to like add this information, or do we tell engineers like this is something you need to add, like you feed them a list of questions they have to ask the designer to like fully understand the design intent. uh but yeah, it's like a long story of kind of like the space that my team is working in, and we're trying to just settle on like a whatever product we can make that like helps in that area. And I've seen it like become quite every day. It seems like this is a harder challenge than I would have thought like the day before. And then we sort of pivot our product sometimes to better fit like what's possible with how people work. Yeah.
And that was the clean answer.
There's been a lot of
Okay.
pivots. So it's an interesting team to be on because I never like we did release like a version of this like before, and then we depreciated it, and then we moved in a different direction, and now we're like pitching it differently, and we're trying to like there's another like big team internally which we're trying to like work with them as like a client, like we're trying to see like what are their design needs and just like sort of hyper fit like onto their workflow just to prove that like something like this kind of pipeline would work. So it's always like shifting, but that's like the general idea. Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah, I'm not doing anything like that right now. It sounds all very impressive.
Yeah, it's the tricky part is like it sounds impressive, but I always feel like for me personally, I'm never I don't have like ownership over any of the cool parts, or like my job in practice is like uh it's like, the like we used to generate code in this way, and now we swapped it around so the things are in a different place, and there's like some tests that like test, the generated code working properly, and they just have to be like updated to reflect like the new location of stuff. And so then like, but then even then it's just like me asking another guy like, well, what file should I look at, and like how does this work, and like I think I need to get access to like this, like how do I do that? And that's like, that turns out to be my whole job, is just like asking some other person that knows more, like how can I accomplish this task that I've discovered I need to accomplish because of the the thing we want to do. And I never really feel like I'm like architecting anything or taking like making big gains. It's always just like getting by, like making minor adjustments without really having like a great understanding. But that's because I run up against this friction of like the code is large, and I've never, I don't feel like I've ever received training in like reading and understanding large code when it like interacts. I only know how to read like a program in a single file when I can like run it easily and inspect the whole thing. But often, yeah, it's just like a bunch of different files in different places, and you can't really run the program. And if you do, it runs kind of like it's slow to build. And so yeah, it's just like this different challenge than I've ever faced. Yeah, I'm in this position where I feel like I'm good at programming. So it's very like almost embarrassing. Like when I sit down and I can't do anything, uh, I have to like, now I'm sort of convincing myself, okay, this is like a totally different skill, not at all like the programming I've ever done. And I just need to like admit that, and then have people like help me build this new skill from scratch, which is like a different mindset, a different way of like reading the code that I've ever trained in before. Uh, and that, I don't know, hopefully I'll make progress with that, I guess, in 2025.
You see yourself doing this long term, like forever?
No, I want like a change soon, but I'm kind of in like a position like uh like with like living in the States and trying to get back to Canada, but sorting out visas, and like I see that like rent prices are high, salaries are low, like the future of the industry, like how many people will get laid off or hired, is like uncertain. So then I'm just kind of frozen. Like I don't know, it feels like very risky to like make changes in today's like economy. But then I'm also kind of unhappy like still working in like a big company with large stuff, and big companies are taking a lot of heat these days about like how like kind of unethical they are, and I agree with a lot of that. And so then I want to sort of separate myself from like the companies that are like destroying the world, and just get, I would love to like work in service of like other people more directly, maybe in programming, like something like I guess training. I don't know if I could like handle teaching. Like I think I would enjoy like I would enjoy being like a tutor in programming, maybe game development for like some people if they were like really into game development. Then I would love to like enable them to do more. But then I don't see that like paying enough to survive, essentially, like if I have to pay rent and medical bills and stuff. Or I worry also about the future of like Canada's medical, like free medical care. I think it might, like the wait times might be long. And then so I'm
Oh,
like, well, it's like an unsolvable problem. You can't
they're
even pay.
long.
Yeah.
They are very long.
Yeah. So all of that just kind of leaves me like frozen. I feel like I can't really be very free or try new things. I need to just sort of like wait it out forever and see. And so what, for a while I was hoping like maybe I do get fired and then I'm forced to like move on. I have to find a new thing. And that would actually be kind of nice, just to free me up from just feeling kind of crummy, like waiting around, I guess, a lot.
So here's an idea. Why don't you take action to gradually unplug from the system, work towards not being dependent on it, because that's actually part of the issue.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you're worried about like healthcare. Well, here's the thing: preventative medicine, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So, if you live a healthy lifestyle, you're going to not diminish, you're going to reduce the likelihood of you needing medical care. If something like an emergency happens, you're going to be, put through emergency and taken care of. You're the priority. But, other health stuff like diabetes, fucking whatever, ulcers, hormonal imbalances, parasites that eventually lead to other issues, increase inflammation, disease. You can reduce all that by taking care of yourself, living a active, healthy lifestyle,
Mhm.
lowering the stress that's in your life. And I find that environment is, well, think about it. Environment shapes evolution. So it most certainly shapes habits and how healthy we are or not. So if we live in a stressful environment and feel the weight of that stress on a daily basis, it impacts our hormones or the choices that we make. And if, civilization makes things comfortable, and so because we're creatures that like to take the path of least resistance, of course we're going to usually choose to be comfortable. It takes a lot of willpower, a lot of effort and energy to force ourselves to train because it's an unnatural thing to do, to pack your gym bag, travel to a gym for strength training, example, and then you get changed, you go work out at the gym, you sweat it, you go shower, change again, and then travel back home. Oh, that's unnatural because before we used to live in nature. Every day we were physically active. We had to be active because there was no choice. There was no cars to take us places, you know? So what I'm getting at is if you feel stuck because you're plugged into the system and the system is designed to make you stuck. I've been trying to push through the different tiers of classes and it's very, very difficult to acquire wealth
Yeah.
unless you create your own business and 99% of businesses fail within 5 years. So unless you're gonna pour every ounce of yourself into a business to make it successful, the next thing is real estate. Well, that ship has sailed twice. There's not only been a doubling in Canadian real estate, but a tripling. Good luck trying to buy a property, like let alone afford it. To qualify for the mortgage, the amount of income that you require is crazy. You need hundreds of thousands of dollars down payment in order to afford $1 million home plus. And then your income has to be over 6 digits for them to even look at you.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to get at is, and that was the wealth builder. That was the other wealth builder. And the other ways is stock market. You get lucky with small market cap, small cap companies, or crypto. Well, the crypto ship has sailed as well since Trump has, I don't know if he's president elect or official now, but because of him and his promises to, loosen the grip of SEC, Bitcoin has doubled, more than doubled since I bought it. So it's like that ship in my mind has sailed as well. I think crypto, it's way too speculative right now. Like you don't put anything into that. So where do you make money? How do you gain wealth in order to increase your status to break away from the 9 to 5, from being a slave, a cog in a machine? How do you break away? I don't, I don't see any other way. The only way I can think of is uniting with like-minded people to form a community and pooling together your resources to buy a piece of land. But the idea would be to pull away from the system, grow your own food in a climate that allows it. So it's like if you feel stuck, unstuck yourself by unplugging yourself. And that's going to
Yeah.
take energy and effort and constantly learning because civilization again has made things easy. We don't know we don't know the nature around us. We don't know what tree does what. A lot of us don't know harvest, forage, process meat. Like we don't have, a lot of us are useless. We don't know how to survive because we're dependent on the system. It's like it's deliberate almost. So through education, through learning, we can liberate ourselves from the tools, the policies, the bureaucracy that oppresses us. So if you feel stuck, dude, it's because you are. You are stuck.
There's also like a dilemma where if I wasn't stuck and I had a bunch of money, I I would hope that I would feel bad as well because of how like that would just be more privilege on top of what I have and alienate me further from like the lived reality of many other people. So then like in a sense I'm kind of glad to be connected in a sim and like sort of undergoing a similar amount of suffering as like those people that I encounter every day, just like regular people, the majority. It's nice to like be part of the majority and like bond with feel connected to other a lot of other people through suffering, but it makes me feel uneasy when I can see that like I see other people in the news, etc., that like they're suffering like a lot more, and I can't really relate to their suffering at all because I'm insulated from it, and it makes me almost want to be like less insulated so that I could feel more like true to the human experience that so many people are having. That like I just kind of sit here not like really able to have empathy, and then like I'm sometimes glad that I haven't like that I didn't profit extremely off of crypto such that I would just be one of the names like in the news sort of saying weird things that aren't really helping because I'm so disconnected or something.
Yeah, there's a few characters who are like that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, and then but
Well,
that's like it's like sort of it's like the future is so uncertain that it makes me want to like hoard wealth. But then it's like, but I shouldn't hoard wealth because then I'll be like detached. But then if I don't, I could be like vulnerable, and then I would, fall below the line of like average and in society, and then have like more hardship. So it's kind of like I wish I could just like stay in the middle and be normal, but it's hard to like stay like the middle is such of a tenuous place to be these days where if you get hit by like the wrong series of events, you get like kicked out of the middle class downward. And so then yeah, you want to like insulate yourself, but I don't want to become like too insulated where I'm like invulnerable or something.
it seems like the single most important thing is your health. And then the next thing is family community and the relationships that you have. Because even if you don't have material wealth, if you have community, family, and quality relationships, you have a wealth that a lot of people, even the richest people, don't have. Like there are people who have their names on the side of buildings and shit who die miserably alone, who live alone, and that's not wealth in my mind. Like it's the relationships that matter. But I would argue that health comes first because if you're in pain or you're depressed or whatever, you're not your true self. I can say that through experience that like my personality a year ago is very different. It's very irritable. Years ago, super irritable because I was always in pain. I
Mm.
didn't have as much empathy, sympathy, patience, whatever. None of it. Like I was just miserable. And it's hard to form bonds, connections when you're miserable. Because when you're like that, you're in self-preservation mode. You don't really see the world that with the with the I know what I want to say. It's just how do I say
Mm.
it? It's if you see everything as scarce, or if you have the scarcity lens on, you're gonna like behave differently. You're gonna be selfish. You're gonna be self-centered. You're gonna
Yeah.
focus on, you're gonna be transactional. Like that's as good as it gets, is transactional. If you see the world, if like that there's like an abundance and that there's a lot to give and that you feel like you have an abundance, then you'll share and you won't be transactional and be resentful if people can't reciprocate. You just be like generally happy giving. And I might have talked about giving and the power of giving and how it not just benefits the person giving, the person receiving, and then people witnessing the act as well. Because it's in our nature, it's actually in our programming to mirror. There's a part of our brain that does that. And that part of the brain becomes damaged with power or with straight up head trauma. And you can get what's called acquired sociopathy. So power actually prevents our ability to mirror and to connect with others, oddly enough. Power isn't necessarily a good thing. So it's like if you have material wealth and power, you become more disconnected from your peers or from people around you. And the more power you have, the more disconnected you are, you feel alone because you can't connect with people. And I was actually joking with my psychologist. I was like, I don't like people. I don't trust them generally. I guess this is before I started to like put myself out there and actually like be a part of a community and stuff. And I was like, I think my solution, I just need to become a sociopath. I think I just need to disconnect and undo my programming because in our programming, we need to be connected to other people. We need to share space or, we need quality time. We can't just be around people at Costco and feel recharged. We need genuine connection. Otherwise, we feel
Yeah.
lonely. And that isolation and loneliness makes us sick. It actually makes us stressed. It's worse than smoking. It's worse than fucking diabetes. I forget the exact like numbers, but loneliness is a killer. So it's like, how do you undo that programming? Well, you become a sociopath. And how do you become a sociopath without actually smashing your head and not being born with it? Well, you acquire power. So I said to my psychologist, I'm like, all I have to do is acquire a whole bunch of power and then I'll be good and I won't need to lean on people. But that's that was dumb. That was bullshit. So it's like I would say that the best wealth that we can have are quality relationships. And we're only going to be able to meet those people, I think, if we're doing the things that we enjoy doing. Like for you, for instance, going on ultra marathon fucking death runs,
Mm.
me going to the gym, doing yoga, whatever, playing piano. It's like by doing the things that we care about, it's like we're going to meet those people. And because we have similar interests, we'll have like trust and be able to build those bonds, hopefully. And I think if,
You-
financially the world crumbles, if we have a good group of people to
oh,
lean on and support each other, real community,
yeah.
I think that's going to help us feel safe. And I think feeling safe is like super important as well for like any growth, any progress.
Yeah, that does seem true. Yeah, I always
So,
worry too that like I feel I'm maybe not connected enough to any kind of community. I don't really know exactly. I don't have a lot of experience like forming communities or finding them. I've always like wherever I've lived, like there should be like a lot of communities around me, but I always feel too much friction to getting involved, and then I'm very like judgmental or something. Like I analyze whatever community I find too much, and I figure out ways that like they're behind me in terms of different skills, and then I feel like I'm better off like studying something else on my own. I don't know if there's enough to like gain from this community or something, and that leads to me uh like feeling less motivation to go meet up and stuff. So I've always found that I never could get like a good rhythm going where I'm like I feel easily like overwhelmed too. Like even like once a week, if I'm meeting up with a community, I start feeling like kind of drained and that I need to like skip a couple weeks. and then I feel disconnected from the community, and so I've never got a good balance of that. In university though, it's nice, like everybody's in dorms, like right there, accessible. You can walk around campus, go to events. That's where it's like good. That's why I always feel like I just really liked being in school because everyone's like the same age, same tasks. You can share like homework assignments. You can go to the clubs that are like held in the same classrooms that you are in during the day. It's very everything's like very convenient at that time.
Yeah, it's like it's its own institution though,
Yeah.
and institutions have their problems. The Yeah, so I understand like the judgment piece because I feel that with the current
Mm.
community that I'm kind of dabbling in, and I've talked about it, I'm sure, many times. I'm and hawing about it, and you know, it's not the perfect one for me. The people are good, but I want to build stuff. I want to create, and I
Mm.
find that that community is all about expelling
Mm. Yeah.
energy and
Mm.
partying and doing substances and releasing and whatever. I don't
Mm.
need that shit. I don't need to do all that. Now, what's good though, and the value I can take from them is they have fun. And so like I went to a place and I dressed up as a giraffe and
Yeah, you told me about that, yeah.
I initially judged it. I was not going to go. I thought it was stupid, dressing like a fucking giraffe, right? Like a bunch of adults acting like a bunch of idiots. And it was a lot of fun. And the giraffe costume was very comfortable, actually. And when I was there, like I actually realized this. The reason why I was judgmental was because I was insecure, afraid, uncertain. And those are my true feelings. I was afraid of not being accepted, of being judged myself. And so I judged. And then I tried to separate myself. And, that ended up in a fight with my partner. And eventually, I worked through my own barriers and I went and I had a good time. But like, like that community. They're nice people. They come together, they release, they expel. And it's a nice experience. I know it's not the community that I'm willing to like change my life for, like permanently relocate for kind of thing. Like I want something that's, focused on sustainable living, reducing your carbon. So like the burner community. This is essentially the burner community I'm talking about. When you think of Burning Man and what it is, people coming together, art expression. It is consumption on like the larger scale. And I'm all about minimalism and reducing
Mm.
my carbon footprint. Everything about Burning Man, except like self expression and acceptance, radical acceptance and self reliance, all that stuff. There's some principles that I actually really align with. But Burning Man seems to be a lot about consumption. And you consume to have a good time, but I think there are better ways to do it where we can be more
Mm.
earth conscious. So there's sort of like
Yeah.
this in this Burning Man group, there's a smaller group that I found, and they're more in tune with the planet. And talking with one of their leaders, the group's leader, I think there's multiple. I'm actually like on the same page where it's like, we don't want to buy new furniture because of off gases formaldehyde, for instance. Like that's how ridiculous we are. It's like we are aware of how manufactured goods are not just good for they're just not just bad for the planet. but they're bad for us. And we try to make decisions that are good for the planet, but also good for ourselves. So the things that we buy, the things that we choose to consume, how we process waste. And so you can still have a good time and create opportunities for people to come together without burning an entire fucking forest worth of wood. You know? So, but I've noticed like this sort of conflict in the group where there's like purebred burners, and then you have like the earth lovers, where it's like burners want to burn and destroy, and then the earth lovers are like, it's nice to have a fire, but like let's not fucking burn down the forest.
Yeah.
So I've noticed those
Yeah.
discussions.
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that. Like Burning Man has a couple of things where like there's like this fence that collects all the blown trash, and like the area where Burning Man's held, like they leave no trace kind of thing. And so it those little like marketing points make it sort of sound like, oh, it's like they're very conscious, they're not destroying the environment. But then yeah, it's a good point that like the closer you look, there are some like seemingly wasteful practices that don't need to go so hard in that direction, that could be even more like sustainable. And yeah, it's kind of like it's an effect maybe of like so many people getting together. You sort of need to do like something explosive, like to sort of unite them all. Uh, but you don't really need like events don't have to be like they don't have to scale up to infinity. You could always like cap it at like, don't make it this enormous event. Just make it like kind of chill and a bit more decentralized, and everyone sort of just kind of, there's no big central amazing fireworks show. It could just be like not anticlimactic, and people just chill and talk to each other.
Yeah, well, there's like decentralizing is like there's regionals where it's smaller, you don't have to travel as far. But like the big burn, when you just think about it, it's not just like the burning of whatever people traveling there, all of the tents that are bought randomly, because like the desert and the sand is alkaline, and it eats, it's basic, so it like eats through shit. So you get a tent, and it's like a one-time use because the tent will be fucking eaten, but before the next summer hits.
Oh yeah.
So so much consumption, and yeah, like they're saying, I haven't been, but I hear about it from everybody who's gone, and it's grown to be so big, it's just a little silly at this point. Now I went to the regional called Lakes of Fire, and I was able to like walk around that and see everything, but it did take a few days. That was a good sized event with a lake in the middle, which was ideal, better than a desert.
Hmm.
But you could see all the art. It was mind blowing, really. When I first landed there, holy shit! I was like rubbernecking, looking at some of the art displays and things that were passing me by just on the little road there. It was really cool.
That's cool. Yeah, I wonder like if art like that is out there and it's so like appealing. I just wonder like why are we not surrounded by that kind of stuff at all times? Like where does it go? Like every downtown core and neighborhood is so boring and flat and dry and like just pavement and muted colors. And like people decorate a little bit at Christmas, but like we should have like the most visually interesting, varied like places that we live, just that inspire us every day. But we don't really get to see for free that many nice things like just along the street. But then yeah, the density at these places, like yeah, I've been to some like museums or something like that where it's just like a great density of interesting, unique stuff like around every corner. And but then that stuff doesn't make it into the greater world. We don't like, it just feels so uninspiring to be in daily life.
I would love. So in Toronto, there's murals and stuff in some areas, and then some fuckers like to spray paint. And there's a way to coat these murals to prevent vandalism, but I would love to see a project citywide, shitty side surfaces, like certain criteria have to be met. Like the building isn't going to be torn down or like added to, where they're going to like add this whole new section. So the art is going to be there and appreciated. And
Yeah.
it'd be cool if like there was a citywide project where they employ all these artists, and these artists go and they make the city more colorful. And
Yeah.
then not just that, but they like protect their work. They can sign their work, and they're compensated for it. So there's that
Yeah.
piece. And then planting more goddamn trees. Like there's
Mm.
not enough trees. They need to be planted on roofs, moss walls, or a thing. Like it's a new tech.
Yeah.
Green the fuck out of the cities.
Yeah, that'd be
Offer
amazing.
some shade. Ways to help process the carbon dioxide from the cars. And green is just, having the green is beautiful. Like it's lovely to
Yeah.
look at. So
Yeah, it's
these
like
moss walls,
de-stressing and stuff. Yeah.
yeah, these moss walls are a thing. And in certain areas where maybe the art isn't going to be as available, like as visible, do a moss wall. Just fucking do moss wall.
Yeah.
And let it be green. Let that produce oxygen. I think moss produces oxygen. That I need to fact check, but I know trees do. Plants do. I mean, photosynthesis is photosynthesis. So moss, if it uses photosynthesis, but then again, moss can grow in dark places. So
Might like filter water or something. Maybe moss does that.
I'll have to look. But still, it's green. It's nice. Plant more trees.
Yeah.
Just make it better for everybody living there. So
Yeah.
it's there's a lot that we can do, and I think consuming at the rate that we consume is not one of those good things. And just being like earth conscious and trying to reduce my carbon footprint, like I like to have fires, and I do like to go a little crazy with the fires that I have. I'm not gonna lie, I'm be a little honest. I'm gonna be hypocritical here. That is like the one thing that I do. That's the one thing, because I wield fire. I enjoy it. I watch it. I meditate. I build it. Like I create it and then it goes away because the fire does its thing. But that is, I don't need to use that to heat my home. I'm not allowed to heat my home with wood. Otherwise, I would. I only can use gas as a condo.
Mm.
But wielding fire for me is like wielding one of the most primal tools that we have access to. And being able to build a fire in shitty conditions makes me feel more independent. And it's interesting in that, like, I have built so many fires, and every time, even though I know what I'm doing, there's always some thing that I have to do differently to make that fire catch. It's really weird. It's like I don't know how to explain it. I can set up the perfect TP, have all the kindling, all the tinder set in place, try to set it up, and then for whatever reason, like it's just never a perfect start. I always have to adjust things or move things, and maybe the wind's in the way, or I have to give it more oxygen by breathing into it hard sometimes. But I create fire, and I find like I'm always learning something new every time I do it.
Yeah, it's an
So,
interesting idea. Yeah.
and
Have you ever
eventually,
tried
like,
to start one? Did you start one like without matches? I've never done that using
not
whatever
yet.
technique.
No,
I
like
think it's
there's like
really
the
hard. Yeah. You need like special wood that works nicely or something.
yeah. Eventually, I like to get to that point. So, like being able to start a fire in rainy conditions, for instance. Part of being in that kind of situation is just being prepared. So you can carry good materials to start a fire with. You can find
There's like
birch.
flint. Flint is pretty cool. This little
Yeah,
rock.
yeah, you can find that. You can find birch, which has a great oil on it. You can have dry wood in case it does rain. But in a situation where, it's unexpected, I saw from a bushcrafter, you can get a piece of wood It's relatively thick. Bring out the knife, cut into the wood till you get to a dry point, and then take the dry shavings from the inner piece of that wood that has yet to be saturated with water. And with those dry shavings, that's tinder for the fire you want to create.
Mm.
So there is a way to do it. There's a way. And once you build up the base of the fire and you get enough heat going, then you can put wet stuff on it. It's I'm experimenting with this because I'm putting frozen logs on a fire at a certain point, and it really slows down the flame. But that fire, as long as you're blowing into it, still licks and heats the frozen wood, eventually defrosting it, drying it out, and then eventually you have more wood that you can use. Ideally, your wood wouldn't be frozen; it would be under a tarp. But I'm experimenting with potentially more survival like situations.
Yeah.
So all good stuff, but by doing that and building confidence, because fire purifies water, provides
Yeah.
warmth, cooks food. It's one of our most important tools. Shelter first, and then I would argue, getting a fire going as part of the shelter, because then you can clean your water and then cook your food.
Mm.
Oh, excuse me. How we doing for time?
Yeah, I
Oh,
think
good
we're
chat,
good.
but yeah, appreciate the chat, buddy.
Yeah.
Anything else you want
Shall
to add?
see you. No, that's a good note to end on. The invention of fire.
All right, I'll
Yeah,
catch
I'll
you next time.
see you next time. Yeah.
Bye, buddy.